Every time a remake is announced, there is always that collective sigh by moviegoers, followed by the line, "Can't Hollywood come up with something original?" What if I told you that remakes are not something that is new, or fairly new, and has been occurring since the early 1900s? In fact, by the mid-1930s, A Christmas Carol had already been remade 6 times. And to date, that movie has been remade over 130 times. While it may seem that almost every film we see nowadays is a remake, a study conducted by Stephen Fallow's Film Data and Education determined that an average of just 4.2% of movies released between 1990 and 2019 were remakes. Now, if you were to ask me, there are several films that were so far ahead of its time that a remake or retelling of the original story is not warranted. Films like The Poltergeist and Wizard of Oz come to mind. But that is not always the case, and sometimes a remake or retelling of the original story enhances it. Here are 5 remakes that are superior to the original films that you may never have,
or probably,
heard of. Now you may be wondering why today's topic on the Pop 5 is covering remakes. Well, during the 31 Days of Halloween, we covered a couple of films that either have been remade or should be remade. The one that was remade was Prom Night, and they should have left that one alone. And one that deserves a little pick-me-up is Tourist Trap. So the films that we're going to be discussing on the Pop 5 today are possibly superior to the other ones, at least in our opinions. I know I wouldn't go back to the originals after having seen these.
Number 5. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark was a made-for-television movie and was released on October 10th, 1973 as ABC's Movie of the Week. I remember those. The story centers around Sally, a young housewife who inherits her grandmother's old Victorian mansion and discovers a bricked-up fireplace in the basement den. She manages to pry open a small door used for removing fireplace ashes, despite the estate handyman's warnings. Little did she know at the time, but a trio of goblin-like creatures escape from within a sealed fireplace and begin terrorizing her, and later reveal their sinister plans to her, that whoever frees them must become one of them. 37 years later, and a remake was released to theaters, expanding upon the original story. In this version, the character Sally is an 8-year-old girl sent to live with her father, Alex, and his girlfriend, who are restoring an old mansion for a client. The movie follows Sally, played by Bailey Madison, who is full of angst over the situation. Like in the original, Sally discovers and opens the fireplace, setting the creatures free to cause mischief through the mansion and causing her father, Alex, to blame Sally for things that start to go wrong in the home as an attempt to get attention and ruin his relationship with his girlfriend. I've never seen the TV special. I mean, it was from 1973, which is before I was born, and by the time I would have been old enough to probably watch it, there just wasn't a rerun around for it. So I have never seen it. I did know that it was a remake in a way, you know, based off of something that came to TV. But I absolutely love that movie. We watch that every single year, sometimes multiple times, because we'll watch it alone and then with the girls. Love that movie.
And you didn't miss anything with the original Don't Be Afraid of the Dark? Because when we would have seen it, The Gate came out, and The Gate was already a lot better than that film.
The Gate came out in the 80s. Oh, you're saying when I would have seen it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Number 4.
In 2002, the Japanese horror film Juwan The Grudge was released. It was the 3rd installment in the franchise. Like its predecessors, the movie follows several characters in an anthology-style story where we learn that illustrator Takeo Sayuki murdered his wife Kayako and their son Toshio and the family cat after discovering that his wife had a crush on her college friend, Shunsuke Kobayashi. The anger and sorrow surrounding the murder created a curse that turned its inhabitants into Onryo, and whoever enters the house is affected and claimed by the curse. 2 years later, the American remake is released, tightens up the story, intertwining two timelines until they connect at the end supernaturally. As in the original film, we follow Kayoko's obsession with another man, and then we also follow what happens to the next family that moves into the home and anyone else that enters. With this film and the first film that was on our list, both a lot scarier, a lot darker in tone, and I think just completely blows those films out of the water.
This version, the remake of Juwan, I thought they nailed it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I love Japanese horror, right? Everyone knows that on here. Like, I've come to really love Japanese horror, but I like the remake of this one. I just thought that it was like heads above.
Mm-hmm.
So it just was creepier.
Yes, the director's cut is even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those that also say, PG-13 horror doesn't work, The Grudge is PG-13. So don't be afraid of the dark.
PG-13 horror can work. You don't always have to have an exorbitant amount of blood or a lot of F-bombs to make, or nakedness. You don't need the nudity, the F-bombs. I mean, none of that has to come into play to make a good horror film.
Just know how to tell a story.
Exactly. Number 3. 5 years after his directorial debut, Wes Craven gave us The Hills Have Eyes in 1977. The film follows the Carter family traveling on vacation, towing a trailer en route to Los Angeles. After stopping for gas, they decide to take a shortcut instead of staying on the main road and eventually skid off the road and crash. The family is soon attacked by a clan of cannibals that kill some of the family members and kidnap baby Katie with the intent of eating her. Doug, Katie's father, and the surviving Carter children with their dog Beast set out to find her and kill anyone that gets in their way. Nearly 30 years later, The Hills Have Eyes remake is released and follows a similar story, only our cannibals are mutated refugees from nuclear testing that was conducted in the Nevada desert.
That slight change with making the cannibals into mutants really did it for me. And the movie's intense.
It is.
It's brutal.
Most of the time, they're inbred, and that's why they're mutated.
Mm-hmm.
This was different. It was this nuclear testing, and I like that better than the whole cannibal thing. I don't like the cannibal thing. It's not my bag.
Little Easter egg for those that don't know, this film was originally NC-17, and it had to be scaled back to get into the theaters.
Number 2.
1973's The Crazies follows firefighter David and his wife Judy, who's a nurse, and fellow fireman Clank, attempting to escape Evans City after an outbreak of a bioengineered virus that causes victims to either die or become hysterical or homicidally insane. The government quickly sends in heavily armed troops to contain the outbreak while searching for a cure. Soldiers are instructed to gather everyone from their homes to relocate to a quarantine zone or kill anyone who tries to escape. In this version of the film, the situations that David and his wife encounter are far more dark than in the remake, released 37 years later, where several of the elements of the original story are updated. David is now a sheriff, Judy is a doctor, and Clank is replaced by Deputy Russell. Just like the original, David and Judy are looking to escape the town after the government sends in soldiers to quarantine and dispose of the townsfolk of Ogden Marsh. The violence and suspense is elevated, and the focus of the story is centralized around David, Judy, and Russell rather than the multiple characters in the original film. The darker undertones in the first film are involving incest and some other things, and then of course you have other characters that are fighting to come up with a cure. Here we don't have to have all these extra characters in the film. We just focus on our main protagonist, which is great because you have Timothy Oliphant, who is just brilliant.
I agree. He is definitely one of our favorites. He's just so good in so many of the things that he's done, from TV shows to movies. So, yeah.
And the Crazies remake actually seems more like a Resident Evil than almost everything that Paul W.S. Anderson made.
Number 1. 1951's The Thing from Another World. The Air Force sends a team to investigate a UFO that has crashed by a North Pole research base. The airmen soon discover the UFO hidden beneath the ice, but accidentally destroy it with explosives when trying to break it free from the ice. All is not lost as they discover the body of an alien encased in a block of ice, which they accidentally thaw out and set free to wreak havoc on the airmen at the base. 31 years later, we get John Carpenter's The Thing, a complete retelling of the original, where the film opens with a Norwegian research team chasing a husky in a helicopter and attempting to kill it. The dog finds safety on a neighboring American research facility and is taken in. Little did they know the dog is a parasitic alien, and it soon brutally attacks the other dogs before escaping. As it begins to attack members of the research team, they discover that the alien can assume the shape of its victims and multiply. The team must identify who the alien is and kill it before it kills and replaces everyone, then escapes to civilization outside the facility, putting the human race at risk of being extinct.
Anyone that ever says that a remake is bad, this is your mic drop. All you gotta say is John Carpenter's The Thing and walk away, because this proves that not all remakes are bad, and some are just absolute masterpieces, and this is one of those films that holds up 40 years later. It still looks great on Blu-ray, it still looks good on 4K, and it still looks great in the theaters if you had a chance to see it re-released this year.
So, I never knew this was a remake. 1951 was way before my time, it was before my parents' time, so there you go.
She doesn't do black and white horror.
And I very few black and white horror movies will I watch and actually enjoy. And when I say very few, I can count probably on one hand. And as my husband will tell you, I was not a fan of John Carpenter's The Thing. I don't know, maybe it's the whole like dog scene. I love dogs. So maybe that's what did it for me. It has taken many, many, many years for this movie to start to grow on me, and it's something that I watched every year against my will. So I don't know, maybe if I had seen the original, I would have felt different. Maybe I would have been like, yeah, this is great because it's so much better than the original, but I didn't, so I digress.
Again, seeing this one as part of those Sunday matinee movies that they would play back on the 5 channels when we were kids, this was not something that stuck out, the original. So it was like, yeah, alien in a block of ice. And it's a little bit boring, the original one. So I wouldn't even come back to introduce that to our kids, because we do introduce them to original films. But The Thing, yes, I saw that as a kid as well. And it's either one of my first movies or second horror movies that I've ever seen. The other one is American Werewolf in London. And special effects were practical. They hold up today.
Boy, that is quite the difference.
What?
The Thing and American Werewolf in London.
They were both on TV. They're both traumatizing. And that's why I love them.
Yes.
So there you have it. The Thing, Crazies, The Hills Have Eyes, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, and the American version of The Grudge. Those are 5 films that we feel are superior to the originals. Now, you may think different. You may like the originals over the remakes, and you may be completely all anti-remake. And that's perfectly fine, because in horror, there are different flavors for everybody. What movies did we not include on this list? Let us know by dropping that in the comments. What other remakes are superior than the first ones? And what other ones shouldn't be touched? Like The Exorcist. And there's probably a bunch of other ones. Oh, Jaws. Don't touch Jaws, please. You can never redo that one.
Don't. Please, we're just begging anyone out there who has the idea to do anything about Jaws, just don't.
At the end of the day, I will say if you cannot elevate the original, leave it alone. But if you can, then maybe take a stab at it. And as you know, it is the quest for 5,000 subscribers. We are so close, so we may have hit the number by the time this video comes out, but we're very close to 2,000 subscribers. So thank you to all of our new subscribers. Thank you to all the people that have been with us since day one. We appreciate you. Love seeing the comments where it's like, wow, I remember when you had 400 subscribers, not even a year ago. So thank you for everybody that has tuned in. And we want to reward everybody on our journey to 5,000 subscribers. And when we hit there, you have a chance to win this box of Strawberries and Scream cereal that is signed by Matthew Lillard and David Arquette. And you can help us get there by
liking, subscribing, and sharing. Because if you share, then you bring in more people to subscribe.
Yes. And along the way, as a video hits 100 subscribers and 100 comments, we'll give away stuff. All right. Until the next Pop 5. See ya.